Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Great Pacific Gold, chatting with Greg McCunn, the president and CEO. Greg and I are going to be recapping some recent drill results from the Wild Dog property, also answering your questions on the upcoming spin-out of the Australian property, and a quick update on the Kesar Project. Company does have these three assets, all of which are kind of moving forward in their own way. The company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol GPAC, also on the OTCQX under the symbol GPGCF, and the Frankfurt Exchange V3H. Now, Greg, let's start off with the Wild Dog property, the drill result from November 10th. One hole, hole 12. This is all part of the phase one program that was expanded to about 5,000 meters. Talk to us about hole 2 or hole 12. It looks like there's a couple zones of mineralization that were intercepted, the headline number being almost 6 meters of almost 14.5 grams per ton gold equivalent. This is one of the better drill results from the asset in your drilling. So again, take us through hole 12, please.
Thanks, Corey, and thanks for having me on again. Yes, as you said, we recently announced I believe it's our second best hole from our flagship Wild Dog project, but we're busy drilling the Sinivit target on the Wild Dog epithermal structural corridor. So just as a refresher, we're testing about 10% of the overall 15-kilometer strike length, so about 1.5 kilometers with a 28-hole, 5,000-meter program that's in full swing right now, and we're about halfway through it. And the most recent result, as you said, hole number 12, was drilled sort of in the center of that Sinivit target, where we've had success in the past with hole 8, which was our best hole. That was 8.4 meters at 50.1 gram per ton gold equivalent. Drilling about now, this hole 12 was about a 40 to 50 meter step out to the south of that hole. And again, as you mentioned, we intercepted the main Wild Dog structure and also a secondary parallel vein there. So there was actually two intercepts from hole 12. That 5.9 meters at 14.4 gram per ton gold equivalent that you mentioned, and then a little bit of a gap, and then another interval of 5.8 meters at 6.2 gram per ton gold equivalent. So continuing to generate high-grade results from the Wild Dog property, and the drilling is ongoing. Holes 13 and 14, both essentially complete now. We're just wrapping up hole 14 in the lab, and expectations are within the next few weeks we'll start to see another package of results come out from those two holes.
So looking at figure 6 from that news release, it looks like hole 12 and 13 and 14 are in a way in the middle of this, I think, overall target, but it's filling in or working on filling in this pretty big gap that you have from earlier drilling. Can you talk to us about, again, how this target's playing out and now it looks like filling in this gap area?
Absolutely. Look, we started on the southern part of this 1.5 kilometer Sinivit target, where we drilled holes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all relatively shallow holes underneath the oxide cap into the sulfide mineralization, and all of those holes intercepted decent intervals. And so there's definitely, and the intervals, were wide enough between circle, I call it 6 and 8 meters, and average grades between 10 and 15 gram per ton gold equivalent, with some very good copper results in there. We had one interval, in particular in hole 6, had 3.5 meters, which graded 4.9% copper, as well as 5 grams per ton gold. So just illustrative of some high-grade bornite in that particular area. So that area is one of the high-grade zones. We call it the southern oxide zone, just below the southern oxide zone of this target. We're now working on the more central, which is about 500 meters to the north. We call it the northern sulfide zone. And we've been drilling from holes 7 through to 14 in that area and having very good results, as you say. As we start to drift towards the north of that zone, you would have seen holes 10 and 11. There's a bit of a gap in the mineralization. The next target where we're going after this is you're going to be moving further to the north towards Kawasuki, which is another target that has known mineralization on it, and starting to delineate what we're seeing here emerging, Corey, is a series of high-grade pods, or if you like, which are carrying very good both copper and gold mineralization. And these would more likely than not be a series of open pits at some point in the future, as these are all close to surface, relatively shallow drilling. The real prize coming later when we talk about what comes next after phase one is starting to test the extension of this mineralization at depth, where we expect the intervals to become wider, the mineralization to be more consistent, and the vein structure to be the feeder zone for what we're now drilling on the surface mineralization.
So at least currently, what you've been finding in, I guess we'll call them these more shallow holes, what is the depth of these two different zones and approximately how far apart are they?
Yeah, they're about, well, we've stepped out about, let's call it the zone itself is probably 100 to 200 meters on the southern oxide. Then we've moved now about 500 meters north of that to the northern sulfide zone. So it's a fairly broad step out interval to the north. We're talking about mineralization that's between, well, some of this mineralization outcrops on surface, Corey, and old workings. We can see these veins, particularly some of the high bornite veins, which are obvious from surface, actually outcropping on surface. We're drilling them at about 50 to 60 meters below the topography. So, definitely in the open pit category at this stage.
Now, what is the overall size of the Sinivit target? Break down just how much, I guess, along strike you've seen from the southernmost hole, which looks like hole 5, up to the northernmost hole, which is hole 10.
Yeah, we've got that covers is about 1 kilometer or 1,000 meters, and there's another, the next phase, the next set of drilling will be another step out about 500 meters to the north. All of that 1.5 kilometers encompassing the Sinivit target. And, in terms of, it's still open along strike, both to the north and the south, but at depth in particular is where we're particularly interested, Corey, and that's due to the analysis that we've been doing on the geophysics, which we flew back here in April before we started this drill program. That was a mobile MT survey that flew this entire area, and the Sinivit area in particular, with 100-meter line spacing from the helicopter. So we've got a well-defined geophysical target here that's now been refined, and the showings at depth show this penetrating in the model generated by the mobile MT survey down to over 2,000 meters. So this is a huge system, yet to be tested at depth to any great extent. But we believe that will be a easier target to drill. As you come closer to surface in these epithermal systems, the mineralization of the veins have all splintered out. We're sort of drilling the fingers of what would be the deposit. And the underground component, which would be the more core vein structure, the feeder zone for this, still remains to be tested. So we're excited to get going on that once we finish this first phase one program.
Okay, a little bit more color on that. One being, how deep are you going to be drilling when you do get to, I guess, this phase two, testing deeper? And what does the transition look like into this phase two program? Because from that news release, it looks like you're about halfway done the current 5,000 meters, but there's also a second drill rig coming to site, which to me says that you probably won't stop after phase one. So again, tie it all together on how that transitions into testing the deeper material.
Yes, so this phase one drill program was designed entirely to help us understand the orientation of the vein structure, so that when we started to test the system at depth, which again, where we believe the real prize is, we would have a better probability of success on these deeper holes. Combining the near surface drilling, this is all orientated diamond core that we're drilling here, so it gives us tremendous amount of information on the orientation of the structures. And then combining that with our geophysics and our recently completed LiDAR survey, and we've got a real full package of information to guide that deeper drilling. Now, as you said, on this program, the near surface phase one, is 50% of the way through. We've got one diamond drill rig that's going to keep going on this. The second rig is arriving. We were hoping it was going to be here this year, but this is a brand new dual-purpose sonic diamond drill rig, which we believe is going to give us much more efficient drilling as we penetrate through the near surface material, which is broken up in difficult drilling conditions. The sonic component of the drilling will help us blast through that very quickly and reduce our overall drilling costs, and then we can switch it to diamond as we get deeper into the more competent rock. So we're going to be starting drilling with that, we believe, in February of next year, so still a few months away. But when we get that rig up and running, that'll be part of the phase two program. And look, we're ready to start testing the southern and the central parts of Sinivit now at depth. So when that rig arrives, we'll have a drill hole program ready to go. And we'll be simultaneously finishing off the northern part of this phase one program with the first rig. So as you said, although we have a phase one that's been approved, that's just a technical step really. From a market perspective, you're going to get continuous drill results from one rig between now and the end of January, and then stepping up to 2 rigs for the balance of 2026. So our intention is to continue to drill with 2 rigs here, testing not only the Sinivit target, which is just scratching the surface here, but Kawasuki to the north, also on the Wild Dog structural corridor. And then perhaps more importantly, what you can watch for some news for coming out is this analysis of the mobile MT survey was not just the Wild Dog structural corridor, which is an area of known mineralization. That's why we started drilling here, because it had the highest probability of success. What's emerging in the story is that this is probably not the best target on the concession. We've got the Megiabi porphyry, which is next door. On the western side and the Wild Dog structure that we're drilling is on the eastern side of that Megiabi porphyry. On the western side of that porphyry is another parallel epithermal system, which looks potentially even more exciting than Wild Dog. So this is an incredible piece of ground. We're building it into a sort of district scale series of gold deposits that will eventually, we believe, will be a mine here.
So, Greg, curious what you have to say too. I guess somebody who would be looking at this story saying these drill results, they're solid, but they're not quite at that 100-gram meter level. And some of the high flying stories out there are hitting some holes that are in the 300 to 400-gram meter levels. What do you have to say to those that might be watching this story but struggling to pull the trigger on buying the stock?
Yeah, well, my background, Corey, I'm more of a mine builder than I am an exploration geologist, and I built 3 different mines in my career, one in Ghana, one in Mexico, and one in Australia. And, it's nice to have high-grade drill results, but the important thing is, can you mine them or not? And what we're doing here is delineating what we believe will be a mineable open pit resource right now. And, certainly the case will be starting to, hopefully hit some even better intercepts at pockets that are deeper than this. They may get us over that 100 gram per ton meter sort of threshold, if you like. But man, the grades that we're drilling here for an open pit are phenomenal. Like the margin on an open pit, mining some of this high grade vein that's close to surface and in some cases outcropping on surface is, it's incredible. So this is the economics of this is what's important, not the flashiness of the drill results.
All right, thanks for addressing that, Greg. Let's also move on to the Kesar property. This project is the one that is immediately adjacent and along strike from the K92 mine operated by K92. You issued an update back on October 31st that essentially said you're going to be filing an updated technical report. What matters here?
Yeah, Corey, it's an important piece of property for us. I mean, Wild Dog is obviously the flagship. It's where we're going to spend most of our treasury, and we're going to invest most of our capability as well in moving Wild Dog forward. But if all we had was the Kesar and Arau projects, which as you mentioned are located in the Eastern Highlands province, they're on either side of K92's K92 mine, which if you're following K92 right now, is one of the highest margin mines in the world. I think I saw their Q3 quarterlies recently. They're generating about $5 million a day in free cash flow from that mine. That's a day, that's free cash flow, not revenue. So it's an incredible, well endowed, and we believe we're at Kesar busy exploring the same type of mineralized system. It's about 6 kilometers to the north of the deposits that are being mined by K92 at Cora and Judd. We had some tremendous success there in late 2024 and early 2025 geologically, and we've summarized all that important work into a new technical report that you can find on our website, also filed on CEDAR. And it's part of our strategy. It's a very strategic piece of ground at Kesar. At some point in 2026, that report has recommended a drill program for phase 2 to go in and try and delineate a Cora or Judd lookalike deposit that is not far from the K92 processing facility. And at some point in 2026, we'll see if we can work that into our plans. We obviously don't want to take away from what's happening at Wild Dog by any stretch, but Kesar has also got a lot of strategic inherent value to us. And for our shareholders, we're looking at ways we can unlock that value in the coming year.
All right, one final question. I had a few people send in emails asking about this spin out, the Walhalla spin out. That's your Australian project. I understand the vote was yesterday on Thanksgiving down in the US. Can you explain when people need to be shareholders to get the spin out shares of this project, of this company?
Yes, absolutely, Corey. And what you're just as a reminder, yeah, you're looking at a sort of three-pronged investment value here at Great Pacific Gold right now. If you're buying a share in GPAC, you're getting the fully financed high-grade drilling on the large-scale Wild Dog project. You're getting the strategic land package next to K92 with Kesar and Arau. And importantly, at least in the near term for people coming into the stock, is you're getting a full share in the spin-out of our Walhalla project, which is located in the state of Victoria in Australia. It's our last remaining Australian project. It's being spun out as a new company, Walhalla Gold, with its own management. Great Pacific Gold are not keeping any of that. We're giving all of that value to our shareholders. We believe we're getting zero value for it right now, and the concept of spinning it out, we believe, is the best way to create value for shareholders. And we've been working on this for about 4 or 5 months now. So it's all coming together, as you mentioned. Great Pacific Gold shareholders overwhelmingly approved the spin-out transaction in a vote yesterday that was held here in Canada, over 99% in favor, as you would expect. Next week, we're going to be going into court to having a final court approval of that transaction and spin-out. And from there, we'll be setting a record date on which, if you're a shareholder in Great Pacific Gold, you'll receive a full share in Walhalla Gold. We're expecting that record date, which will be after the court approval, to be likely December 10th. So you've got a couple weeks here if you're listening to this in late November. You've got a few weeks still to buy a Great Pacific Gold share and receive this free Walhalla share. So we're looking at this as basically free value for our shareholders here in the near term. Obviously, once it's all done, you'll continue to hold a very good piece of paper with Great Pacific Gold, with Wild Dog and Kesar and Arau.
All right, Greg, thank you for this update. I'll post a link to the Great Pacific Gold website. That's where you can read over all the recent news, and please send me any questions you have for Greg. Again, Greg McCunn, President and CEO of Great Pacific Gold. Greg, thank you for the update.
Thanks, Corey. Look forward to next time.